Isli is multicultural, multi-ethnic, cosmopolitan neighborhood. There are more Christians in Isli than there are Muslims. There are more non-Somalis in Isli than there are Somalis. So this is actually the face of Kenya. And although it is the holy month of Ramadan, I think the majority of the Muslims are abiding by the curfew. Everybody's at home. There are no prayers. There are no collective or big gatherings. They're not allowed. The only difference Isli has with other parts of Nairobi is, of course, it's a place that is globalized. And there were people who were traveling the world, people who have gone to China, people who have gone to Europe, people who have gone to America. It's a transit center, which brings in a lot of people from the neighboring countries. So before the emergency, the breakout or the outbreak of the corona was declared in our country, we used to have people from all over the region and the world in that matter. So in that sense, yes, it has certain risks that other neighborhoods don't have. But in this particular case, Isli is not really much more different than any other neighbor. And I think, God forbid, we're going to find out, in fact, that may be the case, because other parts of Nairobi would soon also take their place with that inverted comma hotspot. It's just a matter of time because they have not been tested. Once the testing takes place, we would have the numbers going up. And I'm glad that, in fact,
All right, Mr. I want to cut you short and bring in a question because you're running out of time a bit, but just let me take you back 7 years ago when Isli was also singled out, a section of people in Isli was singled out in operation known as Operation Linda Nchi, where they were actually extracted and relocated to a different situation. Do you see such a similar thing going down this time around?
No, that would be very unfortunate. No crime has been committed in Isli. It is not the fault of the people, obviously, that we have COVID-19. We are working with the government to make sure that, in fact, all precautionary public measures are met. And there's absolutely no reason to victimize, to demonize, or stigmatize Isli. And I can tell you that we would not accept it. And I do not expect from our leadership that they would be taking that negative and unfortunate route.
Move back to the issue of hotspots. When you speak about Kamkuji, there are definitely areas such as Majengo and markets in these places that are heavily, densely populated. Now, what's the fear? Do you fear that there could be a very, very high rising number in terms of infections of these certain places?
Well, I must say that from the onset, although I am very concerned about the devastating impact of COVID, given the experience of other countries, I have been quite optimistic in the sense that there are certain positive things that have been going for us as a country and as a people. The infection was not spreading rapidly. The death rate was relatively low. And I somehow felt gut feeling that perhaps because of our demography, because of our weather, we may actually not be impacted negatively as other countries. But that doesn't mean that I don't fear and I don't worry about the fact that, in fact, this could spread and could have a devastating impact on our community, particularly in highly congested neighborhoods where the idea of physical distancing is just not practical or possible. Because if you look at areas like Majengo, Shaurimoyo, Kiambiu in my neighborhood, yes. You simply would not be able to have any physical distancing because of the housing conditions there and how people live on top of each other. Yeah. So what I hope is that we will be able to contain yes. the infection from getting into those communities.
All right.
And that's what I'm hoping for.
Yes. Now, Aaron, when you talked about mass testing, I remember, let me again refer to Kawangware. When the mass testing began, you had a section of the people who did not go for the testing complaining that the government needs to sort out issues of their stomachs first before they can start dealing with COVID-19. When you come back to Kamkunji, which is your area of residence where you're in charge of, besides what the government is trying to do to cushion the low-income earners and the normal Mwananchi, what has the administration done with regards to ensuring these people see through this phase in a sane type of way?
I would say that the biggest barrier, the biggest hurdle we have in terms of meeting the advice from the experts, the public health advice, is that is an economic one. You know, the majority of the people are poor. They're struggling to pay their rent. They're struggling to put ugali on the table. And therefore, you cannot ask such a person to forego their daily activities in order to save them from COVID-19. You know, this is a very hard choice, a choice between a hard place and a rock and a hard place. And unless the government is able to offer food to these communities, they would not be able to survive under containment. They would not be able to survive under restrictions. If you close the market, you are literally starving these people to death. And if we are going to close the markets to save their lives, then we must be able to provide food and support to those communities. I don't see that at the moment. The government needs to step up to be able to assure the community that in fact they don't need to choose between their health and their survival, between death by or sickness by a deadly disease or hunger and starvation. This is a very, very difficult choice for someone to make. And this is the reason why many people are not coming for the test. This is the reason why people are not going to stop from doing what they are doing, because they simply cannot afford that level.
Yes.
And the option is to be able for the government to step in and provide the necessary support for these people to survive during this particular period, so that we buy time to be able to get out of this crisis. Yes. And be able to reach the next stage.
All right, Mheshimiwa, one last question before I let you go. Now, the country, Isli, is experiencing a partial lockdown as we speak, and there's been a lot of talk around different places that the government should lock down the whole country and stop doing these partial lockdowns, because they believe that the total lockdown is the reasonable step to take forward. Considering the country that we are, Kenya, right now, from your own personal perspective, do you feel like that is the right way to go in terms of locking down the whole country?
Well, I think I was in favor of a partial lockdown because of the economic factor. Because I understand the constituency that I represent simply cannot survive if there was a total lockdown. But if the rate of infection goes up, the only option we have that has been tried in other parts of the world is a lockdown. But a lockdown has responsibilities, has outcomes that the government really does need to be able to say, yes, we'll do a lockdown, but we have the provisions, we have the food supplies, and we have the support that these communities do need, yes, like they have done in other countries. Unless you're able to do that, a lockdown could be suicidal, because it will create conditions of starvation, yes, conditions of unrest that we have seen in other parts of the world. It has to be balanced. You have to balance. But I do not believe partial lockdowns like what is happening in Italy now or Mombasa can help the situation, because Italy is not an island. It's not a place where you can completely seal off. Yes. In this particular situation, it will slow down the process. It will allow the government and the people to sort of work out health arrangements that can ease the situation. Yeah. But at the end of the day, if there's an increase in the infection rate, the only option for us as a developing country is to lock down, provide the necessary supplies and food assistance, feed the population,
yes,
make sure nobody dies of hunger, and stay out to allow the disease to die and to be rolled back.
All right, Mheshimiwa, just before we go, 20 seconds on this last question. There are still people who actually believe this COVID-19 is a conspiracy, that it doesn't exist. What's your last word? 20 seconds.
I don't believe that. I think I believe in the scientific fact that it is real.
Yeah.
It is an unfortunate virus.
Yes.
It is with us. And I hope that, of course, with scientific advancement, we'll be able to get a remedy or a vaccination to be able to survive.
All right, Mheshimiwa. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
All right. Well, as you've heard from Mheshimiwa Yusuf Hassan, who's the MP of, who's the MP of Kamukunji. That's what he's talked about with regards to actually treating this COVID-19 pandemic. Well, at this point, let's take a short break, but don't go away. When we get back, we'll be more with more news. Exciting world of M-Truck Solutions, your trusted provider for bulk SMSs. We also offer API integrations for all your communication and payment needs. We also provide you with tailor-made payment gateway solution to receive and disperse cash quickly, affordable and securely. Let us expand your reach and connectivity on USSD, SMS and voice today. Call us on 0723 030 030 or email hello@mtruck.limited.co.ke. For more details, visit our website www.mtrucklimited.co.ke.
Mount Kenya University takes pride in being an academic giant with some of the best infrastructure, imparting knowledge to the best brains in the country and the region. Our members of faculty are keen to deliver market-driven programs in science and humanities with a keen focus on linkages with relevant organizations. We admit both self-sponsored and government-sponsored students under the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service. Join us today and train with the best to become the best. Mount Kenya University, unlocking infinite possibilities.
Sospita son, tumefutwa wote.
Yawa, pia wewe?
Tumeachiliwa.
Si pia wewe unaweza anzisha biashara yako?
Na hii economy venye iko tough sana.
But not too tough for Mwananchi Credit.
Tutafanya aje?
Si niko na 5 good cars. We can get a quick logbook loan approved within 6 hours.
Nataka kuanzisha salon na spa. Hii haitatosa.
Si tuko na title deed spare. We can still get more money using them. Get a quick approval within 6 hours using your logbook or title deed. Do not get stuck. Call Mwananchi Credit today. Si nilikuambia.
You are a big smart joke.
Mwananchi Credit. Investor in people.
All right, thank you very much for staying with us right here on Midweek 9, the event that's joining us right now. Remember, you can communicate with us on all our social media platforms. That's at TV47KE, or you might as well use the details on the bottom right of your screen. Let's continue with the bulletin. havoc in the country, leaving many homeless and others dead. The Kenya Meteorological Department has said that most parts of the country will continue to experience rainfall above average. Up to now, more than 190 people have lost their lives due to the floods being experienced in different parts of the country.
The Kenya Meteorological Department has announced that in the coming 5 days, some parts of western and northern Kenya will experience exceedingly heavy rainfall.
Maeneo ambayo huenda yakashuhudia labda makali ya mvua hii nzito ni maeneo yaliyo bonde la Ufa, pia maeneo yaliyo magharibi mwa nchi na hata yaliyo katikati mwa nchi kijumulisha Nairobi na viunga vyake. Tunawaomba Wakenya kwa ujumla waendelee kuwa waangalifu zaidi.
Cabinet secretaries from different ministries have said that floods are dangerous and there's need for Kenyans in the areas experiencing heavy downpour to relocate to safer areas, despite the government making plans on relocating them.
We have an operation in Tana River and an operation in Garissa. We are not waiting for people to be swept downstream. We are moving some people using public resources, moving some people away from danger. And that level of alert will remain raised for the next week or two until we are satisfied that we are away from danger.
Some of the areas affected and most likely to get worse in the coming days include River Nzoia in western Kenya, River Tana in the coastal region, River Sabwani, the shores of Lake Victoria, and Masinga and Takwel dams located in Mount Kenya and West Pokot respectively.
Sikiza maelekezo umepewa na serikali kuu, serikali za county, ma-county commissioners wetu na watalam.
On the other hand, Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa has said that the government is continuing with the distribution of relief food to the flood victims all over the country.
Serikali itaendelea kupeana msaada kwako wewe na kwa familia yako. Kwa hivyo ukielekezwa tafadhali nenda pale kwa hizi shule tuko tunapeleka chakula kwa familia hizi.
The Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of Government, Dr. Fred Matiang'i, has warned those who are resisting to relocate to safer grounds will be relocated forcibly.
When we tell you things as government that this is dangerous for you, your health and the rest of all of us, it's important for people to obey this. There are parts of this country where now we are going to be forced to sometimes apply a bit of force and move people out of the areas they have decided to erect. This is science. This is not fiction, and it's not even politics.
As a result of the ongoing floods, 194 people have lost their lives, while thousands of others have been left homeless. This arises when the flood victims in Budalangi along River Trans Nzoia are complaining of theft of their property, which they left behind after relocating to higher grounds. Lydia Gashomo, TV47.
175 residents of Kapchelal village in Keyo North, Elgeyo Marakwet County, have been left without homeless after their houses were swept away by raging floods and landslides following heavy rainfall pounding the area. This comes 3 weeks after another landslide in Chesogon, Elgeyo Marakwet County.
For the last 3 days, these homeless residents have been camping at Kipiegor Primary School, fearing for their health and that of their children because of the cold nights. The conditions at the school are far from being favorable. No electricity, the roof is leaking, and both children and adults have been forced to stay together.
Shida huku imeporomoka, mvua kubwa imenyesha, mashamba imeenda, mimea hakuna kwa shamba, baridi huku ni kali, malasi naye ni shida kuleta, hakuna njia, chakula naye kusafirisha hakuna njia.
The residents say they have been living in fear of being swept by landslides.
Uwezo mtoto mdogo aweza kujua ya kwamba mahali yako ni wapi. Serikali tuangazie kwa sababu kwa sasa vile tunakaa. Penye tumekaa, serikali ingekuwa ni heri wapande mahali huku kwenye tumekaa miti na sisi tupatiwe shamba kule shamba ambayo mahali iko flat penye watoto wanaweza kukaa na penye itakuwa na ustaarabu mzuri.
More than 40 children are living in this temporary evacuation center, and besides the harsh weather conditions, they also have to contend with lack of basic needs like food.
Lakini tumeteseka kwa ajili ya maneno vitu vingi kama chakula, maji, hata dawa. So baridi imetuingilia kwa shule.
Shule hakuna kitu ya kuweka joto. So watoto wanaumia. Na wale watu wagonjwa tunaomba sana serikali waweze kuwashughulikia.
The rains have destroyed roads in the area, making it difficult for well-wishers to reach them.
Kitu kama hiki kuja lazima tuone lasting solution. Lazima watu waongeleshwe na wapeleke mahali pengine. Hatari tusonge ukiwa wai kuliko usongeshwe kama umekufa.
And in Turesia village, Keyo South, more than 15 families have been rendered homeless after classrooms at Kimoloi Primary School were destroyed by heavy rains.
Tutakuwa tunaenda pale kuhakikisha kwamba kila mmoja ameenda kwa relative yake. Tayari tumechukua majina yao yote. Msaada yote ikitoka kwa serikali ama wahisani wote watapatiwa hiyo msaada wakiwa mahali wako.
Calvin Chitwa, TV47, Elgeyo Marakwet County.
All right, that story brings us to a second live interview where I'm joined by Ahmed Mohammed, who's a business leader in the Eastleigh community. Ahmed, can you get me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Now, on to the first question. You are somebody that interacts with the people and the residents of Eastleigh on a first-hand basis. Could you kindly tell us how they've responded to this directive that was issued earlier on today with regards to the partial lockdown?
Well, I think we had it coming. Eastleigh, as you know, is a business hub.
Yes.
It's one of the biggest markets in Nairobi and in Eastern Central Africa. 100,000 people come to Eastleigh every day for shopping. Others come to earn a living. There was some mass test that happened about 4 to 5 days ago. But we could see this coming. We knew this was inevitable.
All right. Now, you've talked of Eastleigh being an economic hub that contributes majorly to the Nairobi economy. Now, there were goods and services that were expected to arrive in Eastleigh before this was issued out, but now that this was implemented, the partial lockdown as from 7 p.m., I believe some of them were expected to arrive tonight. What happens to these goods and services?
Some people have actually run out of stock. As you're aware, a lot of stuff comes from China, Singapore, Dubai. But because of the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of these goods were not coming anyway. But there were some that were expecting their goods to come in the next few nights. But now they're in limbo. No one knows what's going to happen, whether they'll be classed as essential service or not. So people in Eastleigh are frustrated. People in Eastleigh are worried. This was, I think, in my opinion, done in a knee-jerk reaction. People are feeling that the government should have done it in other way and should have actually consulted major stakeholders. So this is something that has come not as a shock, but has caught people unawares.
Now, there's a very critical bit about this whole puzzle. You have residents who don't necessarily live in Eastleigh and live in other places of Nairobi, but work there. Then you also have residents from Eastleigh who work in other places within the CBD. Now, what is the situation? Could you kindly paint a picture as to what transpired after 7 p.m. with regards to that?
Well, we were already on curfew. There was no movement after 7 p.m. But what happens tomorrow is what's worrying people. 70% of people in Eastleigh are service providers, either service providers or shoppers. About 30% live actually in Eastleigh. So there are people who depend on Eastleigh economy to sustain their livelihood. There are maids, security guards, taxi drivers, nurses, doctors, who actually come to Eastleigh on a daily basis so that they can earn a living. Those people's situation is now not known. Obviously, they cannot come into Eastleigh if they don't actually live in Eastleigh. So it will be, it's a bit tricky, but we shall see what happens tomorrow. But there's a lot of people who are tonight unaware of what's going to happen to them, whether they can come in to Eastleigh or go out. But the Gazette notice is very clear. It's a cessation of movement directive. People cannot come in or out of Eastleigh. So it's a bit shocking, but we'll see what happens tomorrow.
You've heard of the saying that you cannot control what has happened in the past, but you can definitely determine what will happen in the future. Now, Eastleigh has been locked down partially, meaning business can go on as usual within the confines of Eastleigh. Moving forward, does this mean that the people are still going to operate normally, or you've decided that there are actually certain things that we need to do to treat this pandemic with the seriousness it deserves?
Well, look, the business community has actually taken the initiative about a week and a half ago of closing down malls because we knew Eastleigh was a very congested area. People shut down malls for about 3 to 4 days. They have made sure that all the malls followed the guidelines laid down by the Ministry of Health. There were sanitizers within malls. There were hand washing areas. There were social distancing supervisors. People were wearing masks. People are doing what they are supposed to be doing. And let me, if I take you back, Eastleigh numbers has risen because there was a mass testing in Eastleigh. And if that same mass testing was done anywhere else in Nairobi, people will be getting the same results or even more. For example, the neighboring Gikomba is a huge market. It's a busy market. It's congested as Eastleigh. If the Ministry of Health took mass testing initiatives to Gikomba, I'm sure there'll be hundreds of positive cases. If they took it to the CBD, there'll be hundreds of positive cases. If they took it to Juakali or Mudhurwa Market or Kulima Market, they will get the same result. So people in Eastleigh are actually asking, they're questioning this directive. They don't know what's happening. They don't know why Eastleigh is actually undergoing this lockdown because they find this very unfair. But nevertheless, it could be a blessing in disguise. Eastleigh could be one of the safest places in Nairobi if we are there by these guidelines. But it's as we speak tonight, a lot of people are stressed, a lot of people are frustrated, a lot of people feel that this is a knee-jerk reaction by the government. A lot of people feel that it's an unfair action by the government. But we shall see. We welcome the directives of the government. There's nothing we can do about it, and we'll follow it to the letter. But I think the government should have used other means to make sure that this disease does not spread. Of course, this is an international pandemic. We are not deaf or dumb to the situation across the world and across Kenya. But as it is now, people find it as a punishment rather than prevention.
Ahmed, thank you very much. But unfortunately, that's all the time we had. And thank you for giving us the insight with regards to what is going down in Eastleigh on a first-hand basis.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we had for you today on Midweek. I hope you've picked one or two, and we generally hope that this pandemic that we are dealing with will be over in no time. I've been your host for today, Alan Wino. Until next time, do have yourself a lovely evening.
more inquiries, please email ads@tv47.co.ke or simply call us on 0748 205 604.
The coronavirus is spreading rapidly across the world, and currently